to. So we started by creating a that was outside of the war, but fought his enemies for his personal reasons rather than political reasons. Let me make sure it's restarting here. So for us to take a race car driver, become a Saboteur, basically it starts off early in the game. The character goes to Germany for a race. You play all of this, and it was really important for us to let the player play this origin story. And you go to Germany for a race, and after the race, it starts off as a prank against your rival race car driver, Dierker. It goes horribly wrong, and your best friend is killed by Dierker. And that sets Sean off on a vengeance quest. And so it was important to kind of, again, just separate ourselves from the war and make it non-political motivations and kind of have something that's a little bit gritty and kind of harsh inside of this huge war, the last great war, setting. So Sean goes off on vengeance. He starts to work with he works with the resistance, and begrudgingly kind of ends up working with the British SOE. Being Irish, he's not a big fan of having to work with the British people, but he has an old friend named Skylar, and who's actually, we'll see once I get starting up this mission here. He works with Skylar, kind of pulls him in to help the British SOE, because if he helps them, they'll basically start pointing him to where Dierker is, so he can get back and get revenge on Dierker. So it's all it's all about his own motivations. Everybody in our game has, we said it, the premise was everybody has their own problem, and so when you start the game, Sean gets his problem and wants to kill Dierker, but every other character we have in the game has their own kind of motivations and why they're actually in the world. So there's this main story of like vengeance, which is like all the missions kind of connect together to that. But also you'll meet other resistance people along the way that have their own problems, and so they'll have little side stories that can kind of branch out and play. So there's like about a 15 to 20 hour main story in the game, and then like all these other side missions in the game as well. Let me get this loaded up here.
Are you doing the whole mission?
We can do.
Do you have a card? Who do you write for? Do you have a business card? Who do you write for?
I'm not physically on the net.
Oh, okay.
But I don't have a business card with me.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
We saw us like the last part of the mission, so we'll be able to drop out at a certain point.
It's okay, just a few minutes.
Okay. So in this mission, one of the fantasies that we had when we started designing the game was we started looking at a lot of pictures of the resistance, and they're always blowing up trains. Like that was something that they did a lot, and we were like, we want to blow up a train, that's awesome. And so there was the fantasy of wanting to blow up the train, but then we also wanted that classic movie fantasy of being on top of a train and having like a fist fight or a shootout on it. So basically we do both of those things in this game, or in this mission. And we have these big, huge scale missions. We designed our missions even though we're in a big sandbox world where you just go anywhere and do whatever you want, kind of playing them like more level-based type missions. We're playing like a single-player level-based game. We're just trying to pull you through with lots of objectives and interesting things to do along the way. So this is Skylar. She is an old friend of Sean's. She's a love interest of Sean's in the game. There's a little bit of a love triangle in the game. We wanted that kind of classic romance story inside of, because it fits with the period piece that we're telling.
I'll explain the details in a way.
This is Skylar's car. We have a bunch of different race cars in the game. Skylar was a big racing fan, and so she's got her own car. And it's one of the many different types of cars you get to drive around in the game. They're all like historically inspired cars. Some of the cars we take a little bit more liberties and add a little bit more modern flares too. Like this car definitely has a little bit more modern stylings from the post-40s kind of era. So, like I was saying, the game is bigger than just Paris. We're gonna go from Paris actually out into the countryside to take out this train bridge. And the point of this mission is Skylar, the SOE wants a scientist that wants to defect, and he's gonna be on this train, but they need to fake his death, so to give them time to get him out of the country. So the way they're gonna do that is they're gonna have Sean crash into a bunch of trees or fences. He's going to go plant explosives on a train bridge, and then he's going to get on that train, slam the lever forward on the train to get the train to crash into the bridge, and then go get the scientist off. So they're basically going to try to fake the death of the scientist.
Which areas are colored and which are not?
So the game starts where when the country gets occupied, everything goes black and white. The countryside itself isn't as heavily occupied, so it's in color, but like Paris is completely in black and white. And as you play the game and you complete these big missions, you inspire the areas, and a pocket around that area of where the mission takes place will turn to color and pretty much remain color for the rest of the game. So you keep inspiring all these pockets, and we do at times when there's like a big story point in the game where like the area will get attacked. We'll bring the black and white back in to sell the idea that, you know, like the resistance is failing in this area. But normally we keep those areas in Hyrule to fight the whole game. So we're moving towards this bridge up here. So it goes back to a black and white area to show that it's a heavily occupied area in the game. So one of the other fantasies of being a Saboteur was it's not about, you know, going in and killing everybody in sight. For us, it was about having some sneaking elements in the game, but we didn't want to have the kind of the harsh stealth gameplay failures. Like, you know, the moment you get caught, you're just going to either die or fail the mission. So it's really, for us, we treat it as a tool and let the player play the way they want to play. So the concept that we designed our missions around is what we call quiet in, loud out. So the idea is to encourage the player to go in quietly and then take a disguise which allows them to move a little more freely through the restricted areas of the game. You still have to play by the rules. You can't, if you act up, you kind of look out of place. So the idea is, like when you're running around in Paris and you're climbing a building, we have what's called a suspicion meter that will fill up slowly if somebody's seen you, and eventually that'll raise, it'll max out. They'll blow the whistle and raise the alarms, and people start showing up and firefighting with you, and that's where it goes kind of into what we call escalation and alarms. So when you're in disguise, it works really similar to that. But we have this other little addition to it that we call the suspicion, or the perception range. So if I start running, I'm kind of not playing my part. And so that brings more attention to me. If I start climbing things, it'll bring more attention to me. So if I jump up here and climb it, you can see I look really out of place as not playing the part as a soldier. So I've got to basically move around to this bridge here and plant bombs on 4 of the struts, and then I plant one final bomb up on the actual tracks itself, and so when the train hits that, it'll set off all the other, it'll blow up and basically detonate all of its secondary charges too.